Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Okay, so we started on this Metta Sutta because it's a very short sutta. Oh, by the way, Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. That means I take refuge in the enlightened one. I take refuge in the one who is compassionate and wise. Okay, so taking refuge doesn't mean it's a religious. Doesn't mean it's just a religious thing. It also means it's actually a transformative thing. Taking refuge, that means you have the trust in the Buddha, in the Dhamma, in the Sangha. Buddha represents the qualities of great compassion and wisdom, whereas the Dhamma represents the quality of truth, and whereas the Sangha represents the quality of purity or purification. So we take refuge, that means we want to cultivate the similar qualities as that of the Buddha, as that of the Dhamma, as that of the Sangha, because we trust these qualities will help us to liberate ourselves from our sufferings, from our difficulties, from our dissatisfactions and unhappiness in life. Okay, that's the whole meaning of taking refuge. It's not just a ceremonial thing. It is actually a path that we adopt. Okay, so Metta Sutta, I decided to talk about Metta Sutta last week because we always practice Metta at the end of our meditation. It's Metta, that means loving kindness. So I really would like you folks to really understand what is the whole meaning behind this loving kindness practice. It is not just a how would I say? It is not just a theory or whatever. It is actually a path that we can adopt, and it is also a meditation technique. Okay, it's one of the one kind of meditation technique, and it helps us in the long run. If we really develop in loving kindness, in the long run, we will become actually very soft at hearts, inside our hearts, and very soft and very understanding and very forgiving. Because if one is if one is loving, kind, really lovely and kind, one bounds to forgive. And if one is not forgiving, then you can check how much loving kindness one has. Okay, all right. So we talked about that last time. Sorry, we did not number the verses, the paragraphs. So we are on to actually we did paragraph 7 last week, I think. Yeah. Okay, so this is paragraph 7 last week. Is just as the mother at the risk of life loves and protects her child, her only child, so one should cultivate this boundless love to all that live in the whole universe. Actually, from paragraph 7 or from verse 7 until verse 9 is really talking about how actually loving kindness can encompass how big it can actually encompass. It's not just for us, or it's just for the one that we love, or for the one who are closest to us. We actually extend it. So the practice of loving kindness is actually one has to start loving oneself first. If one doesn't love oneself, there's no way that you can have loving kindness for others. Okay, so people will say, no, really, hey, this is not working. No. It's on screen share. Oh. You see, it's a perception thing, isn't it? It's no blue light, then it's not working. So people would say, "Oh well, isn't it too isn't it selfish if I love myself and if I always love myself?" No, it's not selfish at all. One has to love oneself before one can get to that extent that their heart can be opened up to love others. Because who is the most dear to you? Who is the dearest to you? Yourself. This body, this mind, yourself, not the one close to you. Who can go with you? Who can actually liberate yourself? Who can liberate you? You yourself can liberate you. Who can make you angry? You can make yourself angry. You say, no, is he making me angry? No, he's just the object of your anger. If you do not have the seeds of anger in you, nobody can make you angry. Because no matter how you want to sparkle that, there's no wood, no log for you to lit up, no log of anger for you to actually light it up. If you do not have those seeds, if there are no matches inside, no matter how big a fire you have, there is no matches, there is no fire, no flame. So if you have the matches of anger, if you have the matches of lust, or you have the matches of ignorance, then whoever out there actually sparkle up and have a torch, then they lit up your matches of anger or ill will or animosity or ignorance. Okay, so one has to really love oneself first before one can know how to love others. You may know how to love others, so you big heart and big heart, and then you have you heard of compassionate fatigue? Yeah. So that means you seem to be loving others, but you forget about yourself. And who suffers at the end? You suffer. Yeah, you suffer at the end. Okay. So verse 7 is it starts from we remember last time we talked about imperative verb to expressive verb. Okay, so this is actually starting from being an imperative verb to become expressive. So one should actually cultivate this boundless love to all, and this actually moves to express a more like a bigger picture of this practice, and offering to show how actually one can hold that place in relationship with the whole universe when one practices meditation. So number eight is extending from a consciousness sublime upwards and downwards and across the world, untroubled, free from hate and amity. So I talked about this last week. Is loving kindness, metta, does not have any boundary. It should not have any boundary. If there is a boundary, that means you attach a condition to give loving kindness. And that is not true metta. That is not true loving kindness. That is a trade-off loving kindness. And that is a commercial loving kindness. Okay? So that is not a genuine, authentic, true loving kindness. So you can, yeah. So this is extending from a consciousness sublime. So it expands itself upwards, downwards, across the world, untroubled, free from hate and amity. So, and then number 9, it says, and while one stands and while one sits, or when one lies down, still free from drowsiness, one should be intent on this mindfulness. This is divine abiding here, they say. That means you can see while one stands, while one sits, or while one lies down. That means we can actually practice or put this practice into its action in any posture. That means any moment of life. Yeah. So then the very most important moment of life is right here. Not the past nor the future, right here. And actually, you see, this already starts to ease into the practice of metta. It can happen anytime. So for some of you, you may be very used to cultivating or practicing metta only after meditation, because that's what you learn from a retreat, and you learn that, you know, after the whole vipassana or whole anapana, then you start to practice metta. But the Buddha said, while one stands, while one sits, or while one lies down. So at any moment of life, we can always practice metta. And the metta should travel or should radiate from you. If we have difficulty in doing it in bigger circles, we can actually start from ourselves, and then we radiate out like a circle. So you are in the center, and then the bigger circle is those who are very close to you. Okay, your parents, your family, and then your friends. So you expand the circle a little bit more. Your friends, and those whom you don't know. Okay, you say, well, it's none of my business. Why do I need to expand loving kindness to them? Yes, it's none of your business, but who knows? One day maybe you bump into that person whom you never know, but you bump into them and you want a good relationship, right? A harmonious relationship. So anybody you want to actually send metta to and you don't know them, doesn't matter, or you just read some newspaper, you read some news and you think, oh, this person, I want to send a metta. Okay. And then another circle is you start to send it off to those people whom you don't like. It's very difficult. But as I told you last week, remember my inmate friend in the prison, he said, wow, it works. Change my IPO's attitude, completely changed. Well, you don't really know who changed, but at least you have done something yourself. And at least something positive has happened. Then you start to have this confidence, have this trust in this practice and in yourself and in the teacher or in wherever or in the universe. Then, you know, you can start practicing, and starting to grow from there. Okay, so the end of this verse 9 actually brings this whole practice to a very, very simple conclusion. It's actually establishing the link between loving kindness, metta, and the mindfulness of here and now, the presence, the mindfulness of now, whether one sits, one stands, or one lie down. So one should be free at that time. Then one should be, if we are actually sending metta right here, right now, that means one is free of drowsiness, one is free of animosity, and one is very clear, and one is very sensitive at this present moment. Otherwise, you cannot give or practice metta. Because if you are drowsy, if you are falling asleep, how can you practice metta? And what kind of energy you're giving out? You're giving out energy of drowsiness, because the whole body is like dull and heavy. So whatever that you're giving out, radiating out, is drowsiness, energy of heaviness and drowsiness and dullness. You're not giving metta. So, but when you're clear, when you're very balanced, and your mind is very soft, and you are not pointing fingers at all, and you're very sensitive, and you're very aware, then at that time when you practice metta, you don't actually literally have to intentionally do it, because it comes automatically. When you think of, oh, you know, I remember my friend who is suffering, or who has just lost a parent, then you automatically, very naturally, you generate metta. And at that time, when you think of that, then when you remember to generate metta, already the body has already started to transform from this kind of energy to the energy of metta. And you don't have to intentionally send it out, it's already starting to be radiating out by itself because it's energy. So it's just like the light. You know, you don't have to ask the light, okay, you shine on this corner. No, you just turn on the light, that the light will actually just shine automatically. And when it shines, the darkness will automatically disappear. Okay? So that's when we are actually starting to cultivate more and more metta, we're starting to have more, we're starting to become softer and softer and softer. And we will start to actually take a step back more and more and more and looking at the situation with a very, very objective and distant attitude. And that actually help us how to learn to let go. So verse 10, this last verse actually shifts this whole emphasis from meditation to the attainment of wisdom. You see, but when one lives quite free from any view, is virtuous. One who is free from any view becomes a person with virtues, with perfect insight. One, so you start to win. You start to actually accumulate insight, the wisdom, and greed for selfish desires will just eventually naturally go away. One surely comes no more to be reborn. That means what? We are free from samsara, right? We don't go round in cycles of birth and death anymore. So you see, this actually tells us this can lead us to a highest plane of aspiration. And with that perfect insight, one surely we comes definitely we will not be reborn again. So this actually comes with accumulation of efforts on this path, right from the right view, right thoughts, and right practice, right effort, and right physical behavior, right verbal behavior, and all the way to right efforts, and then you develop this kind of samadhi and then a panya. So it actually is a perfect path for us to actually practice. And this diligent meditative practice relies so strongly on the good virtues, the wholesome virtues, which actually come about by upkeeping morality, upkeeping this moral standard. Okay, and because of this moral standard being upkept, we are actually building a very, very strong foundation for us to actually continue to grow from there. And with such strong foundation, you can see we start to actually cultivate. If you adopt such a meditative practice, you start to cultivate and you start to achieve and attain a very calm and focused mind. And when that calm and focus come into the mind continuously and more often, then those impurities that we hold on into the mind would will become less and less because we start to polish them down. It's like we throw metal into a what do you call a crucible for purification, right? So if you throw a piece of rock into the river, it takes ages for that rock to become smooth. But if you throw that rock into a crucible, look, the surface of the rock will become heated up. But if you leave it in there long enough, that piece of rock will become heated inside, and the impurities inside would be purified. So it's a really high temperature crucible, okay? But it won't burn you. But it's not easy. You have to sustain that heat. Yeah, you have to sustain, you have to be able to sustain that heat, that tolerance, that patience, that perseverance, that determination needs to be there constantly. No matter whether you're sitting, whether you are lying down, whether you're walking, or whether you're doing chores. Okay. So when it comes to be like that complete purification, that means the total cessations of sufferings. So metta is actually, metta, loving kindness, is actually a practice about the Four Noble Truths also. Right? Isn't it beautiful? We practice metta and we don't know what metta is about. I really, when I started to read this, I said, wow, such a beautiful sutta. We really need to talk about this. So, okay. So conclusion, this Metta Sutta from verse 1 to verse 3.5, actually 2.5, the half of the third verse, okay? So it's talking about the basic virtues, the ethical qualities that we need to develop, all right? And then the second half of verse 3 until verse 6, so 3, 4, 5, 6, so the end of first page, let no one bring about another's ruin and not despise in any way or place. Let them not wish each other any ill from provocation or from amity. So this is actually the intention of one practicing loving kindness meditation in direct speech. Okay. And then verse 7 to 9 from page 2 onward, 7 to 9, the first 3 paragraphs, is actually starting to that practice starting to become a practice of samadhi, concentration and focus. Okay. And then verse 10, that is the panya, that's the wisdom that we get. The development of insight, that means the introspection, the capability of constantly knowing and being able to see through the truth of existence, that is called vipassana. That means the insight, which leads to us coming out of our sufferings, the cessations of our sufferings. So when we have learned how to have loving kindness for oneself, then the loving kindness for others will come automatically in a very genuine sense. All right? Beautiful. That's the loving kindness practice, Metta Sutta. Loving kindness in the ancient language is called metta. Okay, M-E-T-T-A, metta. This means loving kindness. This is ancient Indian language. That means a spoken Indian language. Okay, and the Sanskrit is the Shakespeare part of the Shakespeare's type of old Indian language, but we are using Pali. All right, then we finish the Metta Sutta. So we do a little bit of the etiquette of the Buddhist etiquette as requested. We have talked about that 2 years ago, I think. So just have a brief recap on how we should behave in a Buddhist monastery, or coming to a Buddhist, coming to a monastery or a nunnery or a temple, or a householder can have a sangha, can have a temple also. It's not necessarily run by monastics, but here we have monastics here. So etiquette, that means a moderation in conduct in order not to be offensive and disrespectful to others. So, and as I said before, the Buddhist teachings have only been in the North America for only 200 years. So it's very, very young. It's very, very young. And the culture is actually very, very different. Okay. But as in the Far East, in the Far East, in India, in China, and all that, is some of this etiquette is already in our blood. So it's really, we don't have any doubt about this etiquette. And but but because it's such a different culture, you may have doubt or you may have questions. Please raise them, okay? If you have doubt, if you have questions about this. So we start from home, okay? We start from home. If you are preparing to go to a so-called Buddhist place, or a place where actually they practice the Buddhist teachings, a monastery is not just for Buddhists to come. A monastery or a nunnery or a temple where they teach or where they practice the Buddhist teachings are actually welcoming anybody welcoming anybody, whether they are practicing the Buddhist teachings, or they just want to come and have a look, or they just want to come and learn, and or just come and study. The door is always wide open. Okay, it's very, very, very welcoming. But of course, when you start from home, then you think, okay, I'm going to a nunnery today. Then you have to think of your dress code. The first thing is you can wear beautiful clothes, especially on festive days. You know, you don't have to really wear all the time dark color clothes. Okay. So I see that you folks try to wear really dark colors, and it's just like my dad. You know, my dad said, "Oh wow, when you do washing, the whole patio is so dark." Because I used to wear dark colored clothes, and when I hung all my laundry up, it actually, you know, it become a shade really dark, and he doesn't see any sunlight. He said. That was almost 30 years ago he said that. And okay, so dress code, of course, if it's festive day, I mean, dress up beautiful, put your makeup on, doesn't matter. If you're not used to or if you're not used to not wearing makeup, put your makeup on, doesn't matter, you know, it's presentable, okay? But of course, not low-cut, not spaghetti strip, you call it? Straps, okay, and tank tops and short shorts, okay? It's just like going into Vatican. That's the same. I remember when I went to Vatican with my dad almost 40 years ago. He put on a below-knee shorts, a pair of below-knee shorts, and he wear long socks. And so he was just exposing a bit of his, but they won't let him in because he was wearing shorts. He won't let him in. So, but we won't stop people. You know, I said, no, I won't let you in, because I have been very lax on this, because I would like to plant a seed in a person who has initiated themselves to come here. And I cannot say just, oh no, you can't come in because you're wearing shorts. I think we could educate them later on. But if you push them away the first go, then you may push them away forever. So I have allowed people to come in here with short and with spaghetti straps. But they kind of feel uncomfortable themselves and embarrassing too. They kind of feel that, all right? And perfume, deodorant is allowed. It's not a ban, but if you come into a meditation place, please don't wear a perfume and deodorant, because it could be really pungent for meditators, especially the ones sitting next to you. Sometimes they can get really a lot of really bad reactive behavior, especially if it's a long retreat and people are using scented soap or scented shampoo, or you sit next to them, you're constantly smelling of lavender and eucalyptus or whatever. And this could be really it's distracting and disturbing. And food, you say, food? Well, you see, if you, of course, in the Western culture, a lot of people, especially in the Theravadan tradition, they don't have a really specified restraint on food. But for Mahayana, like Polam is Mahayana practice, we do have some food that we abstain from. First is the meat, and second is the alcohol, and thirdly is the garlic and the onion family. Okay, and you would say, why garlic and onion? They are vegetables, but we talked about that before. When they are eating raw, garlic and onion and leeks and all in that family, when they're eating raw, they actually have the potential to arouse a lot of your anger and irritation and agitation, arouse a lot of mental irritation and agitation. If they're eating cooked, then it's because they secrete certain, they have a certain kind of, I don't know what is in the ingredients that actually arouse a lot of lust. Okay, so that's why in our precepts, in the Mahayana precepts, the Bhikkhuni and Bhikkhu precepts, we abstain from garlic and onion. And if you are a meditator, I strongly recommend you to actually abstain from this, because it actually really causes a lot of irritation. You notice that? Yeah, yeah. And if you don't eat it for a little while, then you go into homes or you go into places, oh God. And I just read, there was a young man who was 16-year-old. He was just killed. Today, it was this, I think it happened today in America. He had too much caffeine. Too much caffeine. He had a McDonald's latte, and then he has some kind of energy drink, and then another hour later had another energy drink. Within 2 hours, he had these three things, and he died, possibly from a heart attack. Right, Sydney? Did you read that too? Yeah, it was last night. Yeah, I just read it before I came. So, and so anything on the extreme is really not beneficial. Okay, so start from home: dress code, perfume, or food. And the dress code is, you don't want to be a figure that actually arouse temptation and thoughts in others. Yeah. Okay, so that's the whole thing. I I remember one young man actually told me that it's easy to remain to keep celibacy when he's around us. When he's not around us, when he goes out into the mall or into wherever, he said, oh, there's so much temptation, because the eye see it, and then the mind will start to all this coming up, right? So that's why. Okay, all right. Then in the hall, so you come in, you come into the hall. So use the side doors if there are 3 doors. Okay, as if in this. Can you see this? It's very clear. So they have 3 doors to this temple. The main door, the center door, is always for the possession of monks and nuns for ceremonies. They go in through the center. And for the side doors is for us visitors or for householder. Or sometimes when I go to visit visit a monastery, I will still go in through the side door as an attitude of being humble. Okay. And when you go in through here, if you go in on this side, you use your left foot. If you go in on this side, you use your right foot. You can remember? It's so easy though. It's so easy because the door is on the left. And if you go in with the right foot, that means you can't see the Buddha right away. But if you go in the left door with the left foot, and then you see the Buddha right there. You get that? You do now, right? Just like driving. If you switch your direction on driving when you go overseas, it's always so easy. The median is always on the side where you drive, which you drive. So if you drive on this side, the median is always on this side. If you drive on this side, the median is always on this side. Though when you change lane, you will not change into the wrong lane.
My girlfriend says, put the passenger in the ditch.
So remember, if you go to Hong Kong and when you drive and you want to turn and you don't know, then just look at the median, the line of median. Oh, we're over there. Then I turn over here. Then you won't drive into the wrong lane. Okay. So entering the hall. Now you can understand now. So if you enter in the center, through the center, if you go through the left, then you go through the left foot. If you go through here, that's the right foot. Yeah. But nobody will penalize you if you go in with the wrong foot. It's just that people know whether you know the etiquette. Okay. So inside the hall, this is a common thing that you really need to know. So inside the hall, if you see like praying seats, those praying little stools that being put there on the two sides and then on the center, don't go to bow on the center one. Okay, the center one is for the abbots or the head person. Don't use it unless if they direct you, then there is always two, one for the abbot and one at the back, like behind it. Like remember the Visak, Dharansi was standing behind me. Okay, she won't be standing right in the center. That is only for the top guy. Okay. So if you go into a temple, if you want to pay respect, like here, we don't have those praying stools. If we put meditation cushion in, you can bow on the center aisle, but don't bow on the center. Bow on the aisle of the center aisle. Or you can bow on the side. Okay. To be humble, we try to stand at the back to bow. Right. So if, for example, if I'm sitting there during meditation time, and you want to pay respect, don't just stand right in front of me and pay respect. Then I'll be looking at your bum all the time. Right? That's not respectful. Not just to me. It's actually to everybody. So if somebody is standing right behind you, then you just sort of go a little bit sideways to pay respect. So if you're crossing a hall from here to that side, because you're crossing, duck your head a little bit. And then, or do a half bow. Okay, it's a sign of respect. Why? Because he is the teacher. And when you really want to learn things from the teacher, you need to have that kind of respect. Otherwise, you can't learn because that's arrogant. If you're so arrogant, your brain is all plugged up. You won't be able to learn anything. One has to be really humble before one can actually learn things. Okay, so and in the hall, this is not a big hall, and also we cannot circumambulate. In the future meditation hall, we will be able to circumambulate. That means we will be able to go around. They always go clockwise because that's natural, right? So remember, the Buddha was born in the nature, and he actually attained enlightenment in the nature, and he actually passed away in the nature. Everything is natural. because when you go round like this, it's so natural. But when you go round like this, it's sort of like, you see, the elbows so feel funny, right? So the shoulders feel funny when you go. But when you go like this, it's it doesn't feel that funny here. So, and in the hall, of course, we avoid spitting, we avoid leaning against the altars. It's so difficult because people are not aware, especially here it's okay because it's so obvious that this is the altar. So nobody would lean against it. But for like inside the little Buddha table, or in our dining room, the little Buddha table, there are people start to lean against all these altars. Try to avoid, distant from this. You see, you're doubtful, then better not lean against than leaning. Okay, and of course, if you have a lot of guests, don't try to avoid passing guests inside the hall, because it will be difficult for everybody, and it's actually sort of like a impolite behavior. And if sitting down, we'll always try to sit facing the Buddha, or at least not having the bum towards the Buddha. So, for example, when you pay respect, of course, you pay respect to the Buddha, right directing to him. But for example, when I finish teaching, like especially the prison group, I will ask you to pay respect to me. Then you don't directly face me. You directly face the Buddha and still pay respect to me, but facing the Buddha. Okay, so that's the inside the hall. And okay, now there comes a test. I want to test some of you, which is the east side of the hall. This side? Very good. Very good. Yes, you're right. So this side is the west side, right? Okay, good. Very good. Very good. So in the hall, mostly, if it is a really traditional Mahayana Chinese Buddhist hall, all the instruments, including this mukyu, the wooden fish, will always on the east side. The drum, the mukyu, everything on the east side, always. In the big really traditional hall. But now they have changed, because sometimes the hall, like, we cannot put everything over there because it's such a small hall. So we split it up. But hopefully in the future, we will still put everything according to the tradition. So on the east side is always the chanting choir, chanting monastics standing on the east side. And the most senior monastic will stand on the first spot on the west side. First spot, first row. If he or she is not there, nobody can use that spot. They have to vacate that spot. So any hall, dining hall, meditation hall, praying hall, every hall, it's always that side is the east side, and always this side is the west side, and always the west side is the most senior. Okay? Yes?
Is the east side always the left hand
Yes.
of the Buddha?
Yes, always. So inside the hall, if you see a Buddha statue, then as I said, the center praying seat, and crossing in front, and standing in front of the Buddha and the altar and the tables, and standing, sitting place. Okay, standing, sitting place. So we've talked about that. And the personal belongings is try to be as simple as possible. We are very blessed because we always strive. So we can actually store all our belongings in a car, and then bring in the least belongings here. And offerings to the Buddha and to the monastics. And people sometimes bring food. In the Chinese tradition, or actually in Theravadan traditions all over the world, it's actually very, very common. People bring offerings. They bring They bring food, they bring clothing, they bring daily necessities, they bring money and medicine, yeah, medicine, everything into the monastery whenever they come. It's not just for when they get a teaching. When they get a teaching, they always bring offerings. And especially during the full moon and a half moon, they always bring offerings. So when they bring offerings, they would not put them onto the altar themselves. They would give them to the reception monastics or reception person who will look after that. If you bring food and if it's past the noon hour, it will be offered the next morning. So don't check on the altar to see whether your oranges have been offered, and why not my oranges have not been offered. You won't be able to see them if you come, after afternoon, and then if you go before the morning. Okay, but a lot of people would check all the times, have they offered my food? Then that is really an intention. Then you will get a very, very little merits. Because the intention of offering is to cultivate the quality of generosity, and also to cultivate the quality of dana. Dana is you, because you come to a nunnery, you come to a monastery. This is a place, a serene place where you practice to come out of your sufferings. And how can any offerings be compared to the benefits that you get from that? Even if you actually give million of dollars, the merits that you get from offering such a big lump sum is incomparable to the benefits that you get from practicing in a monastic setting. You know what I mean? Yeah, it seems that it's so difficult to explain, but as long as you understand. Okay, so now putting the palms together. So some people, I can see it's a very difficult gesture for you folks, because you feel sort of embarrassing or shy. I don't know whether it's shy or embarrassing, or you're so like like this. Do it boldly, because why? Putting the palms together means something. All right, let us look what are the meanings. Look, we put the palms together very mindfully, right against the central plexus, right here. And not like this, not like this, not like this, or not like this. You put them together. As I explained to some people, is that the Buddha nature, the compassion and wisdom in me beholds the Buddha nature in you. Or the Buddha nature in me, when I pay respect to the statue, his Buddha nature beholds the Buddha nature in me. It's a beautiful act. It's a beautiful gesture. So be bold, be open to do it properly and beautifully. So putting the palms together, we call ajali. So it symbolizes harmony and peace and togetherness. Okay, and and also when we put the palms together, that means I am not going to do harm, because I can't, because I have my palms together. And I won't be able to punch people in the face. I won't be able to steal, right? Because I have my palms together. So it's a beautiful gesture. Doing no harm. May I do no harms to others. May I do no harm to people. And it's really, when I put the 10 fingers together, it signifies 10 directions. And may I gather all the strengths from all 10 directions by putting my palms together. So it's a beautiful intent there. Okay? And also it means genuine sincerity and focus and concentration and being very mindful. Right? And actually the right hand actually represents compassion, and the left hand represents wisdom. So when you put them together, you have this wisdom and compassion right there, right now, right here. So when we put these palms together, it's when we see a monastic or when you see each other as siblings, as summer brothers, sisters, instead of hello, hi, you say, hi, how are you? Oops, sorry, prostrations. Hi, how are you? That means right there, you're already cultivating a good wish in you. May we relate with each other in a harmonious way. May we support each other with our wisdom and our compassion. Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it a harmonious relationship? Right? So let us do that all the time, saying hello like this. Yeah. And when we pay respect to the Buddha, we pay respect really because he's our teacher. It's not an idol. It's somebody whom we look up to develop that similar qualities. Okay? So understand now? Palms together. Good. And when we stand, who remember how to stand? What does he call? What does it represent? Like the Chinese saying, like the Chinese writing? Abundant, no. It's the Chinese writing of 8. It's like a mustache, but inverted mustache, like 8. Who has this kind of mustache? One of the artists. Yeah, yeah. And so when you stand, the heels 2 inches, and the front is 8 inches. Remember that? I talked about that before. Yeah. Yeah. No, standing. When you stand, and when you prostrate, of course. If you stand like this, it's very difficult to prostrate. You know that you will fall. And this is actually a very stable posture. Okay? It's just like a little duck walking. Front 8 and back 2. It's like a inverted mustache. Okay? Prostration. We'll put palms together and pay respect 3 times. Or if you can really not bow, if you cannot bow, then you just half bow. Do half bow. And why do we have to pay respect? You know the answer. Why do we have to pay respect? Don't expect me to. Don't try to dig into head. What kind of answer does Sifu want? Is it complicated? I can't answer this. It's a very simple question. Yeah. Humble, yes. Yeah. Teacher, humble. Like you pick up your phone and you say hello, right? And you go into others houses and you call them, you address them, right? It's just a matter of courtesy. But of course, this courtesy is a little bit more courtesy. Is when we pay the first respect, the first bow with respect to the Buddha. That means the Buddha actually teaches us impermanency. Everything is anicca. And when you pay respect, you start to feel the ever-changing phenomenon that actually is happening in your physical existence. And you start to realize, oh wow, impermanence, impermanence, impermanence. You start to learn how to let go. And second bow is respect to the Dhamma. Dhamma, that means the teachings of the Buddha or the truth pertaining to the nature of existence. And you can actually arouse in your mind at that time that, wow, the Dhamma actually, if I practice the Dhamma, I will be able to liberate myself from my own miseries, from my own unhappiness, from all those entanglements. And then the third respect is to respect to the Sangha. Sangha, that means a group of people practicing, a group of practitioners together. Mostly when we talk about Sangha, it's monastics. And they give up their own life, they renounce the mundane life, and they try to practice this no self, okay, anatta. So these are the three way you can actually allow yourself to see what's the importance of paying respect. It's not just to bow down and then up and bow up and down. No, you have, it's actually it's actually a practice, and it's also a commitment. You're committed yourself to practice the path of impermanence and practice the path of liberation from sufferings, and because you understand everything is conditioned. So this is the prostration, and the Chinese style is you put the whole body down, and then you open up your hands to receive the feet of the Buddha. That means you are humble, even if the Buddha walk on your feet. The feet walk onto your palms. In the old days, people actually spread flowers on the path. So when the Buddha comes, the Buddha actually walk on flowers, so he won't dirty his feet. That is actually an act of what do you call? How you call it? Don't know. Reverence. Yes, thank you, Sydney. So, and then the Burmese style, the Chinese style, you each bow you get up and then you go down again. But the Burmese bow is different, or a Sri Lankan bow, or Theravada, they don't get up. They bow 3 times after kneeling down, and then after that they put their palms together. And sometimes they just put the palms together and then do a chanting, a Metta Sutta or whatever sutta, kneeling down like that. So this is the Burmese style. And the Tibetan style is they do we call the full prostration. They have the whole body down, lying flat. Okay, so you can, that is the Tibetan style. If you cannot do either one of them, just do a really sincere half bow. Okay, and then the proper salutation is when you see a monk, you call them Bhante, or Venerable, or Reverend. Okay, or if you see a nun, you call them Venerable, Sister, or Reverend. Easy, right? This is easy. And Dhamma, talking about Dhamma and generosity, as I talk about that just now. Every time you go to a temple for teaching ceremony, it is an opportunity for you to support the Sangha to develop in the paramita of generosity and Dhamma. And especially for teaching, because the Buddha said householders support the Sangha in their daily necessities, food, clothing, medicine, beddings, and now construction and everything. And the Sangha in return show them how to walk on the path. So this is not a trade-off, but this is a mutual support. All right? Wow, that's a fast run of etiquette. Okay, so the Buddha Festival, the Canada, they call it the Canada Buddhist Festival. Now I don't know why, but anyway, it's May 28th. Oh, it's too late for you to apply to come out. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if you want to become a volunteer, please send an email to poem@poem.ca. And then there's June 18th, there's a one-day course, mindfulness course. You can all check that online. And July 16th, there's a children course, age 8 to 15. Then you have to apply through the Dhamma Therapy website. And there is this annual auspicious chanting ceremony, which is held in the Van Dusen Garden in Vancouver, starting from the 1st of August to the 7th of August. So registration forms, if you want to offer food or a light or flowers, is in there. Okay? Good. So let us dedicate our merits. We bring our attention back to this body. Experiencing these changes within this physical body, this physical existence. And we allow this good thought to arise on our mind. For all the benefits that I gather from hearing the words of the Buddha, may I share with all beings, human, non-human, visible, invisible, big or small, far or near. May they be free of enmity. May they be free of miseries. May they start to live in a world with brightness, warmth, and experience love and peace. May more and more people will encounter the words of the Buddha, study, practice, and help themselves to liberate themselves from the dissatisfactions, unhappiness, entanglements in this life, and be happy and be peaceful. Okay, good night.